So I'm going to be talking about this book. It's called Shame and Attachment Loss. Can you hear me pretty well? And basically, I'll be talking about the latest understandings we have about the treatment of homosexuality, the treatment of unwanted same-sex attraction. And the focus of the therapy is on shame. Shame is so important that that's the title of the book. I never mention homosexuality. I will walk in and I will say to the client, have you ever noticed, this is in the first session, have you ever noticed that there are times when homosexuality does not seem to be a part of your thinking? For 2 or 3 days perhaps, you never really think about homosexuality. You never think about the attraction. And then there are other days, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days, where it seems to be a major preoccupation. And all the guys we work with will say yes. Then I ask them the next question. What's the variable between those days that you seem to be not even thinking about homosexuality and those days which you are? Is this better? It's better. Should I repeat everything again? No. So then I ask the question, what's the difference between those 2 or 3 days, or 4 days, or 1 day where you have no homosexual attractions, and those days you do? And the answer is always the same: I don't know. They don't know. And the whole therapy now is understanding what that variable is that kicks them into that homosexual mind state. We think that shame is so important that we don't even worry about same-sex attractions. We never talk about homosexuality, always on the shame. But basically there are 2 mind states. One we call the assertion, where the person is clear and communicating and centered and feeling okay about himself and presenting himself in a natural way, and he's relating to people. There's an authenticity, there's an integrity, there's a calm, there's a focus. And then there's that homosexual enactment stage where he's focused on acting out. By the way, I'm speaking he because most of our clients are men, and this is more of a male psychology issue. And so we focus on the shame moment. And the shame moment is when someone says something to you or does something to you that gives you that feeling of drop. And it's a body thing, and that's why we do body work. It's a collapse, it's a depletion, and then you go into something called the gray zone. The gray zone is a mood state of blah, disinterested, apathetic, disconnected, bored, lonely, frustrated. And that is the mood state that sets you up for homosexual enactment. So if we can prevent you from going into that gray zone, which would put you there by the shame moment, and keep you in that assertive state, there is no homosexuality. Harry Gershman was an old analyst, and he said, the homosexual lives a petrified existence. There's something shut down about him. There's something constricted about him. He may act gay. A gay is a hyper-theatrical expenditure, energy to put on a performance. I'm not talking about that phenomenon that we see in the gay personality. But underneath it all is a kind of deadness. I remember years ago when I first started this work, the guy with the homosexual problem would come in, and he'd be very self-conscious and didn't know what I wanted to say. He was very like this and very meek and worried and self-aware, and I kind of had to pull him out of it, you know. And then he would leave, and a heterosexual guy would come in with whatever problem, and he'd walk in, plop himself in the chair and talk, and then he'd get up and leave, and then the next homosexual client would come in nervous and self-conscious, and there was something about that body posture that I somehow knew was a connection to the homosexual condition. It took me 30 years to figure out that is homosexuality. Homosexuality is that body state. It's constricted, it's self-conscious. And when you break out of that, and when you're spontaneous and you're expressing yourself, there is no homosexuality. Now, we know that the Christian tradition is suspicious of the body, but a lot of the therapy is about body work. I'll say to him, triangle of containment. I'll talk about this a little later. The triangle of containment is we're going to contain you in 3 points. Number 1, hold the pornographic image. Number 2, stay connected to your body. What are you feeling? And stay, and the other third corner of the triangle is stay connected to me. Know that I'm here, I'm present to you, I want to know what's going on. Just tell me what happens. And they go through, first of all, they become self-conscious. Oh, this is weird, I never did this. Blah, blah, blah. Then we get past that, and they go into sexual feelings. And the sexual feelings will become very, very conscious. And then they go into a nothingness. It disappears. And then they go into grief, and then they go into emptiness. And they begin to see that the homosexual image is really a defense against that inner core emptiness, a hollowness. And that's the grief work that we do as part of the therapy. You were taught to ignore your body, not only in terms of the culture, but specifically if you have a homosexual issue, it's because things happen to you that you were not allowed to comment on, you were not even allowed to feel. And so the reparative therapy is to learn to feel again, to reconnect with your body. Your body will tell you. A good definition of the body. When everyone else is telling you what's going on, your body tells you what's really going on. And we were talking about left brain, right brain communication. And that's the connection between good psychology and good theology. God wants us to be fully ourselves in our body, alive and animated and expressive. A quote from Saint Irenaeus, "The glory of God is man fully alive." And that's what the Christian state is. And that's what therapy is about, being fully alive. So that's the big secret that took me 30 years to figure out. So I'm going to tell you in 30 seconds what it took me 30 years to figure out. Which is, when you're feeling and dealing, that's the phrase we use. When you're feeling your feelings and dealing with others from your feelings, you are integrated. There is no homosexuality. You may think about it, it may be a passing thought, but it doesn't grip you. In order for the homosexual temptation to grip you, you have to be disconnected from your body, and that's what shame is. That your shame is the result of your being homosexual. In other words, you discovered you were homosexual, you discovered you had same-sex attraction, and that created the shame. Reparative therapy is saying the opposite. First you were shamed for who you were, especially your gender identity, and then the homosexuality came in as a reparative, as a reparation. That's why it's called reparative therapy. Homosexuality is an attempt to repair what's missing, what's been split off because of shame.